Hey everyone, it's Alex, and I am back with another 90th Academy Awards update video. I'm wearing the same clothes that I wore in my video about the animated short film Contenders because I'm literally filming this right after I filmed that video. But what I'm here today to talk about are the 20 contenders that have been revealed for the category of Best Visual Effects. Now this is an Oscar category that always gets a lot of people excited because it always launches a very passionate debate on social media as to what should be nominated and what should win. And this is one of those categories where there's the initial phase and the semi-final phase. Traditionally, Best Visual Effects always starts out with 20 contenders, and then they narrow it down to 10 semi-finalists, and I'll make a video about that once those are announced. And then finally, from those 10 semi-finalists, the 5 official nominees are chosen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reveal what the 20 contenders are, discuss what I think will be nominated from these 20 contenders, as well as talk about films that are not on this list, either in a good or a bad way. So here are the 20 contenders for Best Visual Effects: Alien Covenant, Beauty and the Beast, Blade Runner 2049, Dunkirk, Ghost in the Shell, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, Justice League, Kong Skull Island, Life, Logan, Okja, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, The Shape of Water, Spider-Man Homecoming, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, Thor Ragnarok, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, War for the Planet of the Apes, Wonder Woman. So based on these 20 contenders, my predictions as of right now of what I think will be nominated, regardless of how much I like these movies or not, or if I've even seen them, just based on what the overall consensus has been, from what I've seen of photos, and from the films themselves of what I have actually seen. As of right now, my predictions for what I think will be the 5 nominees are Blade Runner 2049, Dunkirk, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, War for the Planet of the Apes, and Wonder Woman. And the reason why I think most of these films will be nominated is because they're a very clever blend in many cases of practical and CGI effects. Blade Runner 2049, that film had some very seamless effects that blended both CGI and, I assume, practical effects as well, and I was never bored once throughout its 163-minute runtime. And I believe the original was nominated for Best Visual Effects back in the day, even though it only got like 2 nominations. I think Best Visual Effects was one of them, but it lost to E.T., and probably rightfully so, because E.T. is just a timeless classic film. Dunkirk, there's been a lot of debate I've been having with people on social media on whether Dunkirk is too realistic or not to be nominated for Best Visual Effects, since Christopher Nolan used as many practical effects as possible and used as many real ships and planes as he possibly could. Me personally, no, I don't think that should matter too much, because I'm the kind of person who likes visual effects that are as subtle as possible. Yes, a lot of CGI is very impressive when it's done right, but I look for as much subtlety and realism as possible, and so does Christopher Nolan, and that's a major reason why Interstellar won this category a few years ago, because while I'm sure some CGI was used in some places that it needed to be used, Christopher Nolan was adamant in using as many practical sets and real locations as possible. A lot of those ship sets were real, if you look at behind-the-scenes photos, and a lot of the scenes on the planets they go to were shot in real locations like Iceland. And Dunkirk, of course, was shot in a lot of real-life locations, and if any CGI was used in the movie in certain scenes, I honestly couldn't tell you which ones it was used in. You know, it very seamlessly blended CGI with realism the way Forrest Gump did back in 1994, and that was one of the major reasons why Forrest Gump won its Oscar for Best Visual Effects. So, but of course, at this point, I have no idea of whether Dunkirk will even make the top 10 semifinalists. So at this point, pretty much anything's game to be nominated. Star Wars The Last Jedi, that's pretty obvious, I think, because it's Star Wars, and almost every Star Wars film has been nominated for Best Visual Effects. I believe the only one that was not was Revenge of the Sith. And many people thought Star Wars The Force Awakens would win Best Visual Effects 2 years ago, but shockingly that lost out to Ex Machina. So perhaps voters might feel that The Last Jedi deserves an IOU, but I'm sure even if it does win, it'll probably also win on its own merits. War for the Planet of the Apes, I think, will be a big contender because Rise and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes both got nominated due to the CGI work and turning Andy Serkis and all the other actors into apes, and I'm sure it'll be nominated again for the same reason, and maybe it might actually win this time because neither of the other two films won. But I'd say Star Wars will probably put up a good fight, so we'll just have to wait and see what award shows like the Critics' Choice Awards and the BAFTAs and the Visual Effects Guild will pick in their awards. And then Wonder Woman, I think, could also make the cut, because even though I haven't seen it, some of the shots I've seen from the trailers and the TV spots and the pictures look pretty interesting, and it's like one of the most critically acclaimed superhero films of the year, and it was a film a lot of people were skeptical about because the DCEU hasn't had the best of luck with their other films, with Man of Steel getting mixed reviews, Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad getting largely negative reviews, so people really weren't sure how this was going to turn out, and it certainly did much better critically and commercially than most people were expecting, so perhaps for that reason and for the effects it could get nominated here. But of course there are 5 other superhero films that are in this list: Thor Ragnarok, Spider-Man Homecoming, Logan, Justice League, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Alien Covenant had some really good effects. I'm one of those people who doesn't really understand why a lot of people found Alien Covenant disappointing, and many of these people who found it disappointing were people who, like me, thought that Prometheus was highly underrated. Prometheus, of course, being the prequel to Alien Covenant. But I really loved Alien Covenant. I think it's one of the best films of the year. Not like in the absolute best, not in like the top 5, but I had a damn good time with it, and I was not bored for a single second. Beauty and the Beast, I thought, had some fantastic effects. The motion capture they did with Dan Stevens as the Beast and transforming and making the household objects come to life, like Lumiere and Cogsworth. I wasn't sure how that was going to work in live action, but it did look quite convincing for what they had to do, and since Disney is pretty much an endless piggy bank, they had no shortage of money to spend on the effects, and they look decent. Whether or not it would win if it were nominated, I'm not quite sure, but if it were to be nominated, I would have no objection to it. Ghost in the Shell, I did not see it because it did not interest me, and the bad reviews and the controversy surrounding the whitewashing of casting Scarlett Johansson in the lead role, that kept me away from it, although I have heard from those who've seen the film, and even those who didn't like it said the visual effects were stunning, but I think given in recent years the Academy's move away from the more critically panned films, because you don't really see films like Transformers be nominated here anymore. I think its critical backlash and just the whitewashing backlash could hurt it here. Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, it's been getting some surprisingly positive buzz based on early word of mouth from critics who've seen it, but admittedly in the trailers the CGI animals don't look that convincing. Justice League I haven't seen, but a lot of people said the villain CGI was very problematic and that Henry Cavill had a lot of problems with his lip, because if you hadn't read the story, during the Justice League reshoots, Henry Cavill was also working on Mission Impossible 6, and in Mission Impossible 6 his character apparently has a mustache, and apparently Henry Cavill wasn't allowed to shave off the mustache during the Justice League reshoots because he was still technically filming Mission Impossible 6 at the same time, so therefore they had to go in and edit out his mustache from the reports I've read. Kong Skull Island I didn't see. I've heard many mixed things about it. Some people thought it was disappointing, others thought it was underrated, but Kong himself at least looked pretty good. Life, I thought, had some fantastic visual effects. That's quite an underrated, underappreciated sci-fi movie. It came out back in March and bombed at the box office, sadly, which it really didn't deserve to. I think maybe some people thought it would be an Alien ripoff, and while it does borrow from Alien, it doesn't necessarily rip it off. And in fact, the ending is quite shocking of what happens there, which I was completely not expecting that ending at all. Did not see Logan yet, but I've heard many people say they want Logan to be nominated. Okja, it's in my list of films I'm planning to watch soon. I have a whole bunch of Netflix films that I'm going to be watching in the coming weeks before the year's end, and Okja being one of them. And from what I've seen in the trailer, the titular character does look pretty convincing. Pirates of the Caribbean, never been a big fan of that franchise. The effects from the trailer looked eh. The Shape of Water, that looks pretty cool, and actually, now that I think about it, if The Shape of Water makes it into the top 10 semifinalists, I might end up predicting that, because one of the main characters in that movie is this creature who's played by an actor named Doug Jones through motion capture. And Doug Jones is one of those actors who's had a long history of playing like motion capture characters or characters in heavy makeup. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, that was a mediocre film story-wise, but they certainly wasted no money on the visual effects, because the visual effects admittedly were quite stunning, especially on the big screen. And this movie cost, I think, $180 million, or like over 200 euros, or I don't know. No, I think it was like 180 euros and 200 plus million dollars. I'm not good at the value of one currency compared to another, but basically this was the most expensive film produced outside of Hollywood, because this was made by French director Luc Besson, who filmed it in Europe and not in Hollywood. But like I was saying before, Valerian, mediocre film with kind of meh storyline and some meh characters, but brilliant visual effects. And honestly, if it were nominated, I wouldn't be upset, but would I think it deserved to win? No. I do think other films are more superior, like Dunkirk, or I'm sure Star Wars' effects will be superior. Blade Runner 2049 certainly has better effects than Valerian, and even Beauty and the Beast, I think, has better effects than Valerian, and Alien Covenant as well. But that's really all I have to say about this for now. These predictions, of course, are just very early and premature on my part. I'm just guessing based on my gut instinct. You know, I won't be getting into real prediction mode for this category until the 10 semifinalists are revealed, because that's when we'll really see what might stand a chance. When the semifinalists are revealed, I'll certainly make a video about that and go in depth there about my official predictions once those come out. But write down in the comment section below which films you think will be nominated for Best Visual Effects and which films you want to see nominated for Best Visual Effects. And also be sure to subscribe to my channel if you have not yet already done so you can get more of my new videos as soon as they're uploaded. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.